Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello there, welcome to another edition of Energy Focus of Money Radio on Leadership Television. My name is Winifred Ugbebo, and with me in the studio is an in-house analyst, the group business editor of Leadership newspaper, Inse Anthony.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Well, viewers, we are going to be discussing on using the capital market to finance Nigeria's power sector. That is our topic for today's discussion. Last Wednesday, Geregu Power or PLC officially became the first electricity generating company, Genco, to be listed publicly on the Nigerian Exchange Limited. With estimated $410 billion investment requirement to fix Nigeria's power, the Genco's move validates experts' call that the capital market can be fixed, can be veritable funding, can be a veritable funding option, for the cash squeezed sector. That's the issue we are going to be looking at on today's Energy Focus Money Radio, reaching you on Leadership Television. So, Inse, what has been the experts' opinion on this great move by Geregu Power Company?
Yes. Before I go into what the experts are saying, let me give a brief background.
Okay.
The power sector, Nigeria's power sector, was privatized in over 9 years ago.
Yes. During the Good Luck.
Yes. And the expectation,
Jonathan's administration.
And the expectations were high. Yes. You know what it was like when Nigeria privatized the telecom sector.
Yes.
And then the moribund telecom sector immediately picked up. If you recall what it was like for many Nigerians who hardly had access to telephones, and you have to prepare as if you're going for a special mission.
Yes.
When you want to make a call, you
yes.
go to Nitel, you queue for hours, and then they'll keep trying and trying to see whether you can get your connection. So it was that bad for the telecom sector.
I remember.
Yeah, but immediately after
and something that they even looked as if the privatization, we had this card that we were used to slot in.
Yes. But immediately after the privatization, and then companies came in, the GSM system was introduced. It really opened up the sector.
Yes.
And now the telecom sector is very, very vibrant. It's been improving over the years. So it was with the same expectation that Nigerians looked at the power sector privatization. It was believed that when the private sector comes in, they will be able to introduce fresh investment, all of those moribund infrastructure that was keeping
old NEPA.
Yes, that was
NEPA, we had the PHCN.
Yes, that was keeping that sector down. They will be able to bring in fresh funds and new technologies and improve generation, improve transmission, improve distribution, and then Nigerians will have access to more power. But the reverse seems to have been is the case. This expectation have not been met. In fact, before privatization, Nigeria its power generation and distribution was still within the neighborhood of 4,000 megawatts. And as we speak, it's yet to go above that.
After how many
After
years?
9 years of privatization. So you see, and not only has the power sector performance been this low, in addition to having handed over part of the asset, the bulk of the assets to private operators, the federal government has been pumping in money in one form of intervention or the other, just to support the power sector to keep it going. Yet we are still not seeing the improved services that Nigerians expect to see from that sector. And it's all of the indicators that the especially the distribution companies, their performance indicators that they agreed upon, like having most of the consumers metered, like improving the distribution network so that power can be distributed more seamlessly. They have failed woefully on all of them, yet federal government has been supporting them. So that is the background of where we are still at. And we've also seen a number of these companies being squeezed to the extent that, and besides that, they were also not meeting their financial obligation, to the point that the Central Bank of Nigeria had to clamp down on their accounts and say money only goes in. You are not allowed to dispense, to decide what happens, how you use the money. We will manage those monies. So it's been that bad.
Okay. So now that Geregu Power PLC is officially listed on Nigerian Exchange Limited, so what does it portend for the other generating companies too?
Yes, we have seen now Geregu has blazed the trail.
Yes.
And it got its shares, 2.5 billion shares listed on the main board of the Nigerian Exchange Limited. So that opens it up to a lot of opportunities. Because it listed by introduction, it has not yet listed shares publicly, but it's been admitted into the stock exchange, which means that going forward, it can access financing from the capital market. And accessing finance from the capital market does not just come. It comes with a lot of responsibilities. Its accounts will have to be
publicly scrutinized.
Yes, publicly scrutinized. And then it has to follow some laid down principles, and then international principles for that matter. And then also its corporate governance will also be scrutinized. So it means that it has subjected itself to being monitored, being
transparent,
yes, subjected itself to the principles of transparency, corporate governance, and then good management. And so it means that going forward, any money that it sources, it will be able to, the management will be mindful of how those resources are spent, knowing that someone or people, they are people's monies, and they will be held to account. They will be made to account for those monies. So it kind of helps them to manage the monies better than in other scenarios. So now that is an eye opener, because before now experts have been calling that other fresh options need to be looked at in funding the power sector. We are in a transition period, energy transition, and the federal government with other international bodies, they've estimated that Nigeria alone needs up to $410 billion. That is real. $10 billion.
But has the money ever been an issue? Because you just mentioned the central bank which had to wade in, you understand, to ensure that the accounts of these some of these discos and gencos are not mismanaged. Okay,
yes.
Discos. So I'm asking, has fund ever been an issue?
Yes, funding continues to be an issue, because for a long time the infrastructure has decayed for a very long time. And many of the technologies that were used were also outdated. So there's need to revamp those technologies. There's need to improve the technologies, and there's need to increase the technologies, the infrastructure. For instance, the infrastructure that Nigeria has used for the past 40 years is what is still being used. Yet, Nigeria's population over those years has increased by as much as double. And then the number of housing units that has come on board, estates, businesses, and so on, have been increasing over the years. Yet Nigeria is still using the same infrastructure that it used many years ago. So that means that there is every need to update, to improve on those infrastructure so that it can be able to accommodate the increased demand, for both in terms of distribution network and in terms of the quantum of power that is generated and distributed.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are going on a break now. When we come back, we are going to be looking at other issues in respect to these feat enacted by Giregu Power PLC. Don't go away. We'll come back.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. This is Energy Focus Money Radio on Leadership Television. With me in the studio has been an in-house analyst, the group business editor of Leadership newspaper, Inse Anthony Upo, and I'm your host, Winifred Upo. Welcome once again. And we've been discussing using the capital market to finance Nigeria's power sector. That is our topic of discussion on today's program. And now, talking about Geregu Power PLC, which was officially listed on the publicly listed, the first generating company to be so listed on the Nigerian Exchange Limited. So now, talking about Geregu, still on Geregu's extraordinary fee. How then are they going to harness these nexus between the generating companies, that is the GENCOs, and the distribution companies? Because I read earlier that generating companies, on the other hand, they said they are generating power, but the distribution companies are the ones now falling behind. They are not able to distribute or transmit this power that is being generated. So, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, let's look at the power sector value chain. The power sector rests on three tripods, which is the generating companies, the transmission companies, and then the distribution companies. So right now, Nigeria has capacity to generate up to 13,000 megawatts. And the distribution,
The 13,000.
yes, 13,000.
Okay, that is about 9,000 ahead of
Ahead of the
4,000 that we are
4,000.
operating on.
Yes. And then the generating companies say they have capacity to generate up to 7,000 megawatts. And the issue now lies between the transmission and the distribution. More often than not, we've always seen the generating companies being told to step down their generation because the transmission instrumentality, infrastructure is not able to transmit it. And in fact, that is one thing they keep complaining about, that the generating system is programmed such that it should run on and on without stopping until it is scheduled, maybe scheduled for maintenance, scheduled for one thing or the other. So most times, when they have programmed their machines, their equipment to run the plant continuously at a certain generation capacity, the control center, which is the transmission company, will just call them that you have to step down what you're generating. And instantly, they are required to shut down part of that generation process that they've already imputed into their systems. And it causes a lot of havoc, according to them. It causes a lot of havoc on their systems. And so then when they generate too much or they don't generate enough, you see the national grid is stripped off, and we see the incessant
collapse.
Yes, collapse that we've been having on the national grid. So while the generation infrastructure, they are more largely privatized, because all the six generation companies that PHCN was unbundled into were privatized. So those are 100% privatized. So they put money in their operations to do what they ought to do. So the major problem remains the transmission, which is still 100% government owned, and then the distribution companies that government privatized 60%, but held on to 40%. So these transmission networks and the distribution networks are where a lot of issues still lies, and they need to be upgraded. They need to be improved upon. And if the distribution companies had lived up to their expectations and brought in fresh funds to improve their infrastructure, the monies that the federal government have had to pump into supporting the distribution companies would have gone into improving the transmission arm of it, which is still 100% government owned.
So why is government now not taking at least conscious and concrete efforts to upgrade the transmission process?
That's exactly what I'm pointing out. They've still had to support the distribution companies, because if the transmission is working perfectly and the distribution arm of it is not working, then there's still a problem, because the transmission arm can transmit, but the distribution companies cannot get it to the consumers. So the three
The nexus between
yes,
the three.
the three tripod of the power sector have to work efficiently and at the same time, so that whatever benefit is whatever improvement is seen in one can be made to trickle down
Yes.
and get to the final consumers,
Consumers.
which are you and I.
Yes.
So, but we've been seeing this problem, we've been seeing this issue of disconnect between, okay, today, if the generation companies are able to keep up, you see because the transmission does not have adequate capacity, you see the grid going off, and then where the grid is up, maybe for one reason or the other, there is no gas supply for the generating companies to maintain their generation, or on the other hand, it transmits and the distribution companies are not able to pick up everything, still because of infrastructure. So that is where the need for the huge funding comes up. And we've seen the capital market, like we have seen Geregu has blazed the trail, you know.
Yes, and
in
talking
getting
about
listed.
getting listed, and we also discussed during our last program that most homes are not metered. It's
Yes,
also part of the distribution companies' talk.
yes, that is
work.
part of the performance indicators that I mentioned.
Yes,
They were supposed to ensure that most of these homes
and because
are
most of
metered.
these homes are not metered, they are not also able to recoup their finances, because we see that some places going in FCT, they are enjoying electricity without paying for it.
Yes, we see that, until, but all of those things will require that they put down investment,
Yes.
that they make a commitment in this.
So
in this.
with Geregu's this milestone now, what does it portend for other distribution and generation companies?
It sends a very good signal. For one, I don't know, maybe for one reason or the other, the companies may have been thinking that it's difficult. I know maybe one thing that they may have been causing them to shy away from accessing the capital market is the scrutiny that they will
Okay.
bring on themselves.
Okay.
We have seen a case where out of the 11 distribution companies that were privatized, 5 of them have been taken over by their lenders, the companies who lent them money to acquire those assets, because they were not servicing their loans. And so yes, they've been operating like that, not taking full responsibility in the management of their resources. And as a result of that, companies have been operating like that. They will find it difficult to operate in the capital market, where everything is brought to public scrutiny. There are shareholders who will ask questions about how the resources are being used, about why the company is performing below expectation. And then, of course, it is when the companies do well that the shareholders will be able to get
And of course,
returns.
they will open their books.
And yes, they will open their
external
books to external auditors and all that. And so, as a result of that, maybe some of them do not want to go through these rigors. But at the end of the day, it will be to their own benefit, because if you hold on to 100% of something that is not working, it pays less than if you have to let go of 95% and hold on to 5% of something that is working and profitable. And like stakeholders have called out, it's high time these companies begin to look at the possibility, the viability of the capital market as a funding option. or else Nigeria will continue to go in circles. So the call is expanding. The call is intensifying. That the power sector operators need to begin to put their hearts together, put their books together, and see how they can go to the capital market. And the funds from the capital market is not like what you get from banks. They are long-term funds. They are funds that the interest is not
immediate,
is not as high, as cutthroat as what you have in the banks. And so it's the kind of funding that Nigeria, the sector needs, because it will allow them time to be able to build up and then recoup those investments. And then they will not have interests that are piled over the years like we are currently seeing.
Okay, thank you so much. But before we go, just a quick one. Now, how will Geregu PLC, Power PLC, harness its gains if it's generating power and it's not being distributed?
Yeah, for what they have been doing, there's what is called there's an arrangement where some of them can sell to eligible consumers.
Okay.
So that they are like bulk consumers. That if you can consume up to 2 megawatts, maybe like the companies, big manufacturing or industries, they can always apply directly to them for direct sale. So where they produce more than what is being transmitted into the national grid, they can have other arrangements. But it's still been, that process is still been worked upon. No, it's been on, but they've been having some issues and all that because it is still being regulated by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. But we have situation where many of these generating companies, they have to have stranded power because power can be stored anywhere. It's not like gas that you can say you fill them into cylinders and then you use. Once you generate and they are not distributed, it is lost. So these are that's what a lot of them, they decide that rather than generate and it is wasted, let's maintain what we can transmit and then what can be used, so that, but of course at the end of the day it means that capacity is not being utilized.
Yes, that's what it means. Thank you so much for that explanation. It's a question that many Nigerians are interested in knowing. That is how we call it a day on today's Energy Focus. It means it still has been an in-house analyst, Anthony Uko. It's going to have you next week. I'm Winifred Ugweba. I look forward to having you same time, same station, on the same radar next week. Have a beautiful weekend. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.